John Haynes has been with the American Institute of Physics, AIP, since 2009, where he's Vice President of Publishing. He began his career in scientific publishing in 1988, working for Taylor & Francis and then Academic Press. John spent 17 years at the UK's Institute of Physics Publishing, developing new products and leading outreach in Asia. He also was editorial director for the Royal Society of Chemistry. John presents at publishing events and is a tutor for the STM Masterclass. He has a PhD in chemistry from the University of British Columbia and held a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Oxford.
Great. Thanks very much, Tim. Thanks to Allen Press for the kind invitation. It's great to be here. It's great to see so many people here. It's a bit like talking in a cinema, especially now you've all got ice cream. Anyway. All right. Okay, so the whole title of the session is Mysterious New Worlds. And I'm going to explore some of the emerging aspects, particularly related to open access publishing. So open access has been around for about 15 years or so now. In fact, I was involved in one of the first open access journals, New Journal of Physics at IOP, which was launched in 1997, so very much a pioneering venture. But since then, there's been whole companies formed, Biomed Central, PLoS, Hindawi, publishers that have got their whole model is based around open access. And also focus on this strange new word, mega journal. I'm going to talk a little bit about PLoS ONE because that is a remarkable success story. Whether that's going to be emulated or whether it's going to be a single instance of a mega journal, who knows. A little bit about the basic journal functionality and how important I believe that is in the whole sort of respect of the journal publishing ecosystem. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the forerunners, PLoS ONE, and I'm also going to name check Optics Express for the Optical Society, OSA, and there's a colleague. OSA is a member of AIP, one of 10 member societies that we have, and I know there's a colleague from OSA in the room here as well, so thanks very much for some slides that are from your organisation. And then I'm going to come round to AIP Advances, which is AIP's entrance into open access publishing, and tell you a little bit about our experience just over a year into publishing that journal. Okay, 2006, only 6 years ago. The iPad hadn't even been invented by then. The iPad only came out in 2010. But open access was certainly making grounds and making inroads, particularly into the biomedical fields. I think by then Biomed Central, for example, had got something like 200 journals. New Journal of Physics, Optics Express have been around for 10 years and has made a good impact on open access. There was a lot of discussion about the various flavors of open access. I'm not going to go into those in any detail today, but I hope you're familiar with things like green open access, all for self-archiving. I'll mention a little bit about what's happening in physics there because it's relevant to the story. But gold open access, the author pays model, you should be, I hope everybody's familiar with those terms and terminology. So, part of the journal ecosystem is print, and many journals, about 25,000 journals currently publishing 1.5 million articles in the journal ecosystem. And as I say, particularly in the biomedical areas, there's a growing number of open access titles. So 2006 was the year that PLoS ONE was founded. And it's interesting to look at both the starting conditions, what was the environment in 2006 for PLoS ONE, what were their rationale and motivation, and open access in general. So if you followed the PLoS ONE story, you'll be somewhat familiar with this. The initial conditions, I think, are very important to kind of bear in mind as a case study. I think what stands out is really strong vision and leadership, right for some very high-profile scientists, Nobel-winning scientists were involved right at the start of PLoS. And they wanted to, there's lots of quotes in their kind of mission statement when they were organizing, and they really saw the internet as an opportunity to radically reinvent scholarly publishing, which they saw as a very conservative bastion, not serving scholarly needs as well as they should. So they were very radical, bold, ambitious, and pioneering. And I think that speaks to the nature of scholarly publishing in a way. From 1700, 1665, the founding of the first journal, right through to today, many of the functions that were founded by Henry Oldenburg for the first journal, they still exist today, and they serve those needs well. And learned societies in particular are very conservative, risk-averse. So this was kind of a really bold, ambitious, pioneering vision that they had. They had the PLoS brand because they'd already created PLoS Biology, which was their first journal, which they created as a very high-tier flagship publication. And they had the not-for-profit logo as well, which was a strong badge that they really stuck to. They had significant investment. I mean, the startup was an amazing startup. If you look at what Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation pumped into PLoS, it's something over $11 million in the first few years. And actually, I think if you talk to the founders, they'll say that they were kind of rapidly running out of money because of the high costs of running high-quality, top-tier flagship journals where the rejection rate was very high, and the article processing charges couldn't scale to cover the cost. So they actually had a financial imperative as well to create something that was going to kind of get them back to being not-for-profit as well as not-for-loss. One of the particularly strong aspects of their innovation was their peer review model, where they actually thought about peer review in a very clever way, I think. And they separated two different functions of peer review. The aspect of peer review where something is technically correct, it's sound, the results are supported, and the conclusions are supported by the results. And they separated that aspect from this more subjective aspect of merit, broader appeal to a wider audience, some of those subjective things, and they left that to post-publication commentary, ratings, and metrics. And they've done a lot of very innovative things in that. They did base it on their gold open access model and an article processing charge of $13.50. So where are they now? 2012. So it is a remarkable story, but it's well worth taking a look at. Well, this tracks the number of published articles over the period by quarter, and the table gives you the submission of publications and the percentage of the publications as it would be as a part of PubMed Central. So you can see it got off to a very good start. Even in the first year, it published over 1,200 articles. So they actually tapped into a great unmet need of scientists, particularly in the biomedical areas. They saw continuous, steady growth right up until the middle of 2010, when they got their first impact factor. And the day they got their first impact factor, they went on a different growth curve. And you'll see that markedly, the curve breaks from one level to almost twice as much. They became the largest journal in the world in an amazingly short space of time. By 2010, so 4 years. Last year they published 14,000 articles. I mean, that's as many articles as my organization publishes in a year, and we've been publishing for more than 80 years. So it is absolutely amazing story. Just to give you an idea of the sort of scale, we have over 3,000 academic editors. 3,000 academic editors around the world in different fields representing the coverage of the journal. And in the last 6 months, they've had 2 people working full-time vetting CVs from editors, and they've appointed 1,000 new editors in the last 6 months. So their ability to scale has been a remarkable achievement. You can see a little bit of the slide. If you can't, then go onto the site. This is where you'll see some of the post-publication features. And I think they've really, again, tapped into the idea that publishers have really forgotten about, is that our job isn't really done when the article is published in print or online. Really, our job only starts there. And our job is to make sure that article is read and discovered and cited and cited and cited. And so they've really tapped into using different social networks. You see sites you like, Conative, Facebook, Mendeley. They're tapping into blogs and the media coverage. It's all gathered together around the article. So the article becomes a hub for the content and a shop window for the content as well. Okay, so that's PLoS ONE. Let's talk a little bit about Optics Express, because this has been around for a longer time. From OSA, I'll pick out a few highlights here. They launched it in 1997, and it's now become the 12th largest journal in ISI's Journal Citation Reports. So again, it could be classed as a mega journal. This slide shows you the differences highlighted in red between OSA's open access journals, which it now has 3 of, and OSA's traditional subscription models. So you can see online only versus online plus print, author pays versus subscription model. You see the range of fees there depending on the article length. Interestingly, there's no copy editing on Optics Express. So that kind of, is there any value add in copy editing? Certainly it doesn't look particularly strong on this title. One of the key features was speed. They halved their publication times. Again, they really worked hard with the editors, authors, referees in terms of looking at the process. And PLoS ONE refines its process almost on a daily basis. It's fine-tuning that workflow, that process, to make sure that publication times are really fast and competitive. Optics Express also got a very good impact factor, 3.7 in the field of physics. Physics generally less cited subject than biomedical areas, with 3.7 places it very high in the optics section. And OSA has built on this success and launched 2 other journals on a similar model, and the numbers there look like those titles off to a very encouraging start as well. So there's 2 examples, possibly, of open access mega journals. Are these some of the features that you might expect? Certainly, it's got to be open access. Covers a broad subject area, or is multidisciplinary. Peer-reviewed for rigor, not impact. That's certainly the case with PLoS ONE. I think Optics Express does a combination of 2. The post-publication evaluation, say something about that in relation to AIP Advances shortly. But it's supported financially at the article level, so it becomes scalable. I think it ties in with some of the discussions previously on the previous session about how to find a sustainable model to provide access to a growing body of scholarly content. And the challenges that libraries have, economics and budget issues to take it there. So this success has not gone without notice in the publishing world, and particularly the success of PLoS ONE has spawned a whole lot of what are called PLoS ONE clones. And these are just a few of them. And AIP Advances is up there, scientific reports from Nature, Sage, Springer Plus. There's been a lot of emulation. So how are these guys doing in the field? Why don't you just look at a selection of them. It's probably still early days, really. PLoS ONE's been around for 5 years, and the emulation didn't really start until the last 2 years, when people sat up and saw that PLoS had become the largest, PLoS ONE had become the largest journal in the field. The second largest title is from Biomed Central, BMC Research Notes. Pretty pleased with AIP Advances and where that is. It's published 259 articles in the 9 months that it had last year, so it's had a good first year. But I think it's probably too early to tell. You see the common sort of denominator generally is prices around the same area as the PLoS ONE model. So AIP Advances, screenshots. The motivation was partly, physics has an archive, the archive, which I'll say a few words about that, but the belief that that OA is here to stay, and we wanted to work with a gold open access model because a hybrid open access experiment, author select, was not really working. And there was demand from our authors for OA with the AIP Ground. We wanted to adhere to some of the core journal principles of scrutiny, dissemination, long-term archiving. I mentioned the archive. This is widely regarded as physics is all open access anyway, isn't it? Well, this shows the growth of the archive in terms of number of submissions per month. This shows it broken down by subject. In fact, when you actually look at it in terms of the physics output, scholarly literature, it's probably 20–30% of physics is represented in the archive, and the biggest growth area currently is mathematics, not physics. Skip that. We did a study 3 years ago which actually looked at what is the coverage between the archive and APS journals and AIP journals. And for journals in high energy physics, then there is a high degree of overlap. PhysRevD, which is high energy physics, almost 100% of that content is available for free in the archive. But you see with other journals that are not high energy physics related, the percentages are significantly less than that. For our own journals too, we see that in fact it's the opposite. Most of applied physics letters and Journal of Applied Physics are not in the archive. So there's no open access solution for these articles. We also, our hybrid model, where authors can pay a fee to publish in a subscription journal, was very little take-up. About less than 0.5% of our 15,000 articles the authors choose to publish and pay to publish. So we thought there was an opportunity, particularly because we felt, actually we had a mega journal already, we hadn't really thought of it as a mega journal. But our Journal of Applied Physics Letters and Journal of Applied Physics is doing things on its own now, which are run out of Argonne Lab. Last year, 20,000 submissions, 9,000 published articles to those journals. That is essentially a mega journal. And our editors, particularly of Applied Physics Letters, the red color here, the editors were applying stricter criteria and were rejecting more articles which previously would have published. So there was this demand for an AIP branded content. There's scope for open access in physics despite the archive, and our hybrid solution hadn't worked. So we launched AIP Advances in March last year, and here's some facts and figures so far. So submissions, nearly 1,000 submissions in the first year, 250 articles published. See the figures. It's really encouraging to see a lot of usage as well. Those sort of usage figures are comparable already to usage figures of established journals in our portfolio of a similar size. So, you know, we're really pleased with the visibility. Publication times, quick, not as quick as we want them to be, so there's some room for improvement there. I think the 62 days that OSA have got is a good target for us. The article processing charge at $13.50, we've got something like a 70% honouring rate so far, and so people are prepared to stump up the money. And just recently we were accepted in Web of Science, so we'll get an impact factor when they've got 2 years worth of data. Interestingly, the commentary and ratings features are not used, and this is what PLoS has also found, that of the papers that we published, there have been 9 comments and 7 papers with comments, and 47 ratings, and 34 papers with ratings. So there's a very modest uptake of that post-publication commentary. I don't think that is really working, so we're going to take a real close look at that and how we do other post-publication metrics in the future. That's what our site looks like. So this is an article that was published in February this year. And this is one of the even in 2 months, this is one of the most downloaded articles on the site. I think it's had 800 downloads in the first few weeks. So this is available to the authors, the readers to see this sort of traffic, this metrics. So have these models impacted the core journals in science? Well, 4 key functions we're very familiar with: registration, certification, dissemination, archiving, whether it's Nature or the first journal, whether it's an open access journal, whether it's a rapid publication journal, whether it's a mega journal. I would argue that they're all the same, and that any journal needs to have those four functions. And that the journal publishing ecosystem is very rich and very diverse, and open to lots of competition, which drives us all forward. So we live in, when I say, a lush rainforest of 25,000 journals. That's the ecosystem. What's going to happen in the future? Will we move to having a very small number of top-tier journals located on this splendid desert island, surrounded by a vast sea of mega journal content? So will those 25,000 journals be subsumed by something like 100 mega journals? 100 mega journals were publishing 7,000 articles a year. That would subsume half the 1.5 million articles that are published. I don't know. I can't predict the future, but in closing, I'd like to just say PLoS ONE has been a truly remarkable success. So competing with the mega journals has become another fact of life. It's another competitive element in the landscape. There's no interest in post-publication commentary. That's what we found and PLoS has found. I think publishers need to and are making services available around the article, and the article becomes a hub. With things like semantic technology, author, and affiliation disambiguation, there's a lot of work publishers can do there. What if 50% of the world's literature were published in 108 mega journals? What does that mean for you? And how do you position yourself? But I think this is actually too early to say that scientists are abandoning this richer, diverser journal ecosystem. The economics of open access are crucial. That's not sorted out yet by any means, because most of the budgets to acquire content are in the library budgets. And if you wanted to shift those somewhere else so that they're available for article processing charges, that's not going to happen easily or quickly. And I hold on very dearly to the core principles of scientific publishing, and I believe they matter no matter what model you actually choose to publish under. So, thank you.